First of all, the people of Iran are wonderful people. I'm not talking about the people. I'm talking about their government, which is run by their supreme leader. We can't dictate regime change. That's up to the Iranian people. But the fact of the matter is that if you think the theocracy run by the government of Iran, the Charlie Mansons, was dangerous to the world, and I do, then the world is a much safer place today.
You know, every once in a while, a politician steps up to the mic and just says what everybody else is thinking, but too afraid to say out loud. And this week, Senator John Kennedy did exactly that. His Senate address about Iran and nuclear weapons, it's been making serious waves online, and for good reason. Let's break down what Kennedy actually said and why it matters, because honestly, this is one of those topics we can't afford to sleep on. Kennedy doesn't start with policy. He starts with principle. 3 lines. Don't hurt people unless they're trying to hurt you first. Don't take other people's stuff, and leave me alone to live my life the way God intended. Simple, almost libertarian. He's not saying he wants conflict. He's saying sometimes you can't ignore it either, and that sets the tone for everything else. Now, here's a key distinction that gets lost in a lot of debates. Kennedy's not talking about the Iranian people. He says that straight up. He's talking about the regime, the Ayatollah, the leadership. This is a government where religion and state are the same thing, and when their beliefs justify violence, that's a real problem. Kennedy even shares his own faith journey, Presbyterian to Methodist, not to preach, but to underline believe what you want. But once faith turns to violence, that's a line we can't cross. Then he turns to the nuclear issue, and this is where it gets real for all of us. Kennedy argues, if the Ayatollah gets a nuke, he'll use it. Some call that alarmist, but let's be honest. The bigger risk is what happens next. Iran goes nuclear, then Saudi Arabia does, then maybe Japan, South Korea. The more nukes out there, the higher the odds that one actually gets used. By accident, miscalculation, or on purpose. That's not just Kennedy talking. That's international security 101. Kennedy doesn't just stop at nukes. He points to Iran's support for Hamas and Hezbollah, terror groups responsible for attacks worldwide, including on Americans. Iran's building missiles that can already reach US bases and Israel, and they want more range. Add in the reports of tens of thousands tortured or executed by the regime. That's a humanitarian disaster most people barely hear about. And when you see the Ayatollah's allies, Putin, Xi, Kim, you realize this is bigger than just Iran. But here's what really stood out. Kennedy isn't anti-diplomacy, and he's not calling for war. He supports the president's efforts to make a deal with Iran, but only if there's strict, verifiable enforcement. He says he wouldn't trust the Ayatollah if he was 3 days dead. Harsh, but memorable, and it's rooted in real concerns. Past deals with Iran haven't always held up. So, what's the takeaway? Kennedy's speech is a call to take the Iran threat seriously, not as an excuse for war, but as a real, multi-layered challenge. Disagree if you want, but the facts he points to, nukes, missiles, terror links, repression, aren't partisan. They're reality. Did Kennedy get it right, or miss the mark? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this breakdown helped you see the topic differently, hit subscribe and stay tuned for more.
I have 2 more topics I want to talk about. Look, everybody's got an opinion about Iran. I get it. That's good. Americans are entitled to have an opinion. Every member of the Senate has an opinion. Every member of the House has an opinion. Obviously, the President has an opinion. The Pope has an opinion. Everybody has an opinion, and that's a good thing. I can tell you why I think we did the right thing by going into Iran. First of all, the people of Iran are wonderful people. I'm not talking about the people. I'm talking about their government, which is run by their supreme leader. Now, the old supreme leader is now dead, is Woodrow Wilson. But they have a new supreme leader. It's the son of the old supreme leader. And he's just as crazy as his daddy was. The people in charge in Iran, they're a theocracy. That means, unlike America, where we separate church and state, and there they marry their church to their state. And the supreme leader who rules Iran thinks that he is speaking for God. He really thinks God is telling him to do all this stuff. And the supreme leader believes that if you disagree with his version of his religion, you should die. And they hate America. And they hate Israel. And they do. They want to kill us and hurt us the entire time we're dying. And they're trying to get a nuclear weapon. This isn't like China having a nuclear weapon, or Russia, or India, or Pakistan. Let me ask you a question. Would you give Charles Manson a nuclear weapon? That's what we're talking about here. Charles Manson's also dead as Woodrow Wilson. But would you give a Charles Manson type person a nuclear weapon? No. And that's why we can't let the supreme leader and his minions in Iran have one. Now, how do we stop it? Well, this is what Iran was up to. First of all, President Trump and Israel went in June and bombed the living daylights out of their nuclear facilities, destroyed them substantially. To develop a nuclear weapon, you've got to have fissile material, enriched uranium, and we hit their production facilities so hard that a lot of that uranium is buried underneath the earth, underneath the ground, but it's still there, okay? But we bombed the hell out of them, and we set them way back in terms of their nuclear ability, but it still exists. And we received intelligence saying Iran has started to take some baby steps to restart their nuclear program that we bombed to hell and back last June. But that's not really why we went in. We also received intelligence that said Iran has a new game plan. The supreme leader, nutty as a fruitcake, the supreme leader's decided here's his game plan. He is going to double and triple missile production. Ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, also drones. They were producing those things at anywhere from 200 to 600 a month, maybe more. And the supreme leader was going to stockpile all these new missiles and these new drones. And then he was going to turn to America and Israel and the rest of the world and say, I'm restarting the nuclear program. And you can bomb me. You can bomb us if you want to. But we've got all these missiles, and some of these missiles can reach Berlin and Paris and London and Turkey, and we're going to use them. First thing we're going to do is destroy the Middle East. We don't care. We're Charles Manson. We're going to destroy the Middle East, and then we're going to start on anybody else that we're mad at. We couldn't let that happen. We couldn't. So Israel and the president attacked. Now, whether you think it was a good idea or a bad idea, that's up to you. I can tell you the effect of it, though. Okay, the media won't report it, but this is undeniable. We hit Iran so hard, they are coughing up bones. The public sector, but also the private sector today in Iran. It doesn't give me any joy to say this. We had no choice. I don't know how they're standing. They're held together with duct tape and spit. Israel and America ran 21,000 bombing runs. We bombed seaports, airports, the electrical grid, railroads, the petrochemical industry, the pharma industry, their steel industry. 6 out of 10 Iranians of adult age don't have a job and don't have any prospect of getting a job. Many parts of the country don't even have electricity. We knocked out 2/3 of the Supreme Leader's missile launchers. Does he still have some left? Yeah, they're buried in the ground. He's got to dig them out. You probably saw pictures on TV of the bulldozers. We think we've knocked out half of their cruise missiles and ballistic missiles. We're not sure how many drones. They don't have an air force anymore in Iran. They don't have a navy either. They still have some small boats that the Revolutionary Guard, which is part of their military, runs. But they don't have a navy. We sunk all their ships. We attacked virtually every single building we know of, which is run by the Revolutionary Guard, which is part of their military. I don't think the American people, because the press hadn't reported it, have a full appreciation for the damage that we did and had to do. I've seen estimates as high as $1 trillion for them to rebuild. And I know the press glibly reports, China and Russia will help them build back. What's the point of the war? Well, the point of the war, they're not going to have a nuclear weapon anytime soon. Charles Manson may be able to find a knife, but he's not going to have a nuclear weapon. And in order to rebuild Iran, it's going to take 20, 25 years. And I don't know if we'll be able to recover all the enriched uranium. Some of my Democratic colleagues and some of our colleagues in the media are saying it's a failure because you didn't get their enriched uranium. I never figured we'd get it. And a lot of my colleagues are saying, well, it's a failure because you didn't affect regime change. The nut jobs are still in charge. That's true. We can't dictate regime change. That's up to the Iranian people. Only way we can dictate regime change is sending in troops, and I don't want to do that. But the fact of the matter is that if you think the theocracy run by the government of Iran, the Charlie Mansons, was dangerous to the world, and I do, then the world is a much safer place today. And that's just a fact. That is a fact. It's going to be a long time before the Charlie Manson can rebuild. And it's going to be a hell of a long time before the new supreme leader is going to get a nuclear weapon.